The brilliant sun blazed down upon Masai as he sat in the ferry boat. Like most days, only a few clouds hung in the sky, while an intense heat pressed upon Masai like a massive hand. Sotek sat on a bench right in front of him, and a boat driver manned the helm near the rear of the vessel. Slowly, they made their way to the other side of the Va. Masai glanced to the western bank, and his heart danced with whimsical vibrations. The Neferi Necropolis stood silently, much as it had over the last 9 years since he had last been there. Masai often found himself wandering close to the pier, only to stare at the place for hours. Most of the people who saw him do this chalked it up for him mourning his mother, or some other recently dead family member. A small bead of warmth burned within him. He was finally coming back to the place where it all began. Too bad he wouldn't be able to see her again. That would have made this little excursion so much better. A wooden dock stretched from the banks of the western shore. Masai's line of sight fell upon a large obelisk that lorded over the tops of the mastabas and tombs. The glyphs and the symbols that covered the surface had been a mystery to him as a child. But Masai had learned much in his time at the academy. Every once in a while, several horse-sized jackal statues stood within the confines of the necropolis. They appeared only slightly worn down by the constant brushing of sand, although not nearly as degraded as some of the surrounding buildings. The tombs themselves came in various sizes. Smaller structures usually served as family crypts for wealthy families, while the larger and multi-floored buildings served as storehouses and resting places for the general population. When the boat reached the dock, Sotek jumped out and paid the ferryman. Masai followed him over to the obelisk, but didn't say anything as Sotek had not said anything throughout the journey across the Va. When they were out of earshot of the ferryman, Sotek pointed to the obelisk with his staff.
Look at the spells etched in the stone. What do you see?
Masai got closer to the massive obelisk, and he studied the glyphs more closely. He even ran his hand through some of the deeply etched lines and the symbols closest to the ground. Reading and interpreting the glyphs had been a subject of 3 of Masai's academic classes.
First thing I see is a warning, but it's woven like a spell. From the intent of the glyphs, there seems to be an aura of unease cast upon this place.
Very good. We are no longer affected by that aura because we have a connection to Anakanti, but anyone else will feel uncomfortable in the necropolises, especially at night.
Wait, if that's true, then how do tomb builders and inspectors get past the aura of unease?
Masai frowned at him.
I remember coming here as a kid and feeling the terror of this place.
Sotek's eyes bunched up for a moment, and a mask of bewilderment momentarily dawned his face.
You came here as a kid? Really? What would a child be doing in a place like this?
Masai's shoulders rolled for a moment, and he gave out an awkward grin.
It's not important why I was here. Anyway, how do the tomb builders and inspectors manage to cope with the aura?
The older cleric paused before he answered.
We provide them with talismans that block them from the aura. The talismans' magic only lasts so long before it becomes useless. Once the tomb builders and inspectors are finished with their tasks, they are required to return the talismans to us for future use. One thing to note is that they don't work at night. What are some of the spells you see?
Just below the unease spell, a pair of unique spells were etched very close together. Masai stared at it for several moments, and during that time, Sotek observed him quietly. Neither of the spells made sense at first. When read together as one single spell, it declared that Anakanti was forbidden from interacting with the world of Enonoch. 2 barely noticeable lines, red and blue respectively, ran down the length of the larger spell.
There's a large spell, but there appears to be 2 spells hidden within the larger one.
Very good. What do the secret spells say?
Masai traced the first spell line with his eyes.
The first spell says Anakanti can view and hear anything that goes on within the range of the obelisk.
Sotek nodded.
Correct. And how about the second one?
Masai's eyes traced the second spell line over and over.
Does that say Great Anakanti can take human form and come to the necropolises?
Sotek's eyes widened.
What?
The older cleric viewed the obelisk and studied it himself.
You're interpreting it incorrectly. The spell reads, the goddess can manifest her voice to communicate with any of her clerics within the necropolis.
Masai pointed to the obelisk.
That's not the glyph variation for vocal manifestation. The circle with the person within it means body manifestation, right? The vocal manifestation glyph is lower in the chain, but it's different than that symbol.
Sotek glanced over the obelisk again.
That symbol represents the presence of a person. I've always assumed it meant someone has to be here to hear Anakanti.
That doesn't really make sense. She's the goddess of the dead and the afterlife, but she's powerless to speak unless someone's here? She's a deity.
A flash of anger ignited in the older cleric's eyes.
Well, someone's pretty full of themselves. Read the third spell, whelp.
Masai's enjoyment died, and his eyes felt downcast.
Read the spell. It's hot out here, and I'm anxious to be inside.
Masai pushed away his embarrassment and studied the spell. The glyphs carried a different tone and intent than the first two, and he had to read it a second time before they started to have meaning.
It says Anakanti is only allowed to contact her followers within the range of the obelisk. I don't understand. Why would we include that on the obelisk?
Oh, you don't understand? I guess you shouldn't be scoffing at someone who's supposed to be training you, unless you know exactly what you're talking about.
Once more, a great and terrible weight pressed down on Masai's spirit.
I'm sorry.
Here's the deal, my inexperienced trainee.
Sotek said as he gestured toward the obelisk.
Whenever we cast spells to empower the obelisk, the inscribed spells carve themselves into the surface. The largest spell, the third and the fourth spells, are confusing because they place impediments upon the goddess. Why would she do that to herself?
It wouldn't make any sense as to why she would.
Masai regarded the obelisk again.
Wait, you said the spells carved themselves? Are they divine spells?
Yes, they are.
Masai whirled around to face him.
The primary five have no power over Anakanti, though.
Sotek stared at him. A flood of ideas struck him at once.
The goddess Dia is restricting Anakanti's power.
The older cleric nodded.
I'm afraid so. The third spell also states Anakanti can't contact anyone beyond the range of the obelisk. The fourth spell is the most intriguing, though.
Why is that?
It says Anakanti can't reveal her secrets to anyone while within the obelisks.
Sotek inched closer to Masai.
Our philosophers have been trying to figure out what that phrase means for centuries. What secrets does Anakanti know, and how will they affect our world? Is that secret set in place to protect us, or hinder us? I will admit something. I think you're right about how that second spell reads. I think Anakanti can come down in human form.
A sudden pressure emerged in Masai's lower stomach.
Has she ever appeared to anyone?
No. And why would she? The most anyone's ever interacted with her is through very brief and infrequent conversation. Usually we Anakanti clerics don't hear from her much.
The older cleric peered around and made sure that the ferryman stood at a distance. As soon as he felt safe, Sotek leaned in close.
I'm sure the Zur hear from her more often, but even then, it's only in the form of commands.
But she can only do that within the obelisk, right?
Right. It would only make sense why two of the spells are scrambled within a false spell. I'm going to let you know a secret.
Sotek's delight resonated in each word.
I've been told by friends who are clerics in other faiths that the second spell appears as it is meant to, another impediment of Anakanti. They can't see the hidden spells within the larger spell. The only reason they even know about the hidden spells is because of the spies within our order.
What does the fifth spell say? It's the last one on the obelisk.
He read it and then nodded.
That spell places curses upon those who violate the tomb entrances, as well as providing the energy to awaken the guardians at night.
Yes, I'll show you the scroll of empowering a blank obelisk once we get back to the temple.
Are we able to modify the obelisks so they aren't so restrictive?
Sotek walked away from the obelisk and headed further toward the city of the dead. Masai followed at his heels.
Not really. The obelisks, by dimensions, are huge, and hand-carving the glyphs would take weeks. They have to be the same on each side, and they have to be perfect. And even if we could do that, why do you think that we don't?
Because that would cause a war between us and the primary five.
Exactly.
Sotek moved to one of the mastaba entrances.
Even though I have several friends in other faiths, I don't doubt they'd crush me if our order started on that kind of route.
Is that why the Zur are so hated? Do the primary five see them as undermining their religious foundation? Are the Zur actively trying to expand Anakanti's power and influence?
Something like that.
Sotek shrugged.
I like you, but I won't give any specific details to anyone who isn't a Zur. If you want to know about them, you'll have to ask one of them yourself. What do you see above the door?
The stone door had an elegant mosaic on its cover. The image displayed a man holding a blacksmith hammer, and he stood beside an anvil. Above the door, a series of glyphs stretched from one end to the next.
It's a curse. It inflicts any trespasser with the rot spell, and they instantly die. What's the part at the end, though?
Sotek placed a finger on the glyph in question.
Trespassers rot, and then turn grey. A magical call is sent out, and the Zur come to collect the body or bodies.
And that's in addition to the Jackal Guardians?
Masai studied the spell lines again.
I suppose while the Jackals sleep during the day, the spell safeguards the dead.
Right again. You're a clever one. You'll make a great cleric, of that I am highly confident. I don't see any tomb builders around at the moment, but that's okay.
Sotek moved away from the mastaba entrance.
When you become a full cleric, you'll get scrolls that have the tomb protection spells within them. You're showing great aptitude. I think I only have one last lesson to teach you.
The last hint. What does it mean?
Let me preface this first.
Sotek gestured with his finger, bouncing it with every word.
For the most part, this spell doesn't work. Regardless, I want to teach it to you anyway. I'm going to teach you how to send messages to the goddess herself.
A strong sense of profound intrigue blossomed within Masai, and his mouth fell open.
Now, this spell is said to only work within the necropolis, but you're supposed to be able to send messages to her and hear them in return.
Sotek whirled around to glance at the surrounding buildings.
They say she's all around us, but I've never heard from her.
So, what do? How does the spell work?
Don't get too excited, my young friend. Most people don't hear from her. First, you must clear your mind of all thoughts. Second, you must contribute a great deal of your mana towards the spell. You have to generate enough and send enough mana toward the land of the dead, so Anakanti will notice you. Most of the time, clerics don't send enough mana to be noticed. The Zur have a special trick, but that's their secret to hold. Even if Anakanti notices you, she may or may not respond. She's very busy after all.
Should I try it right now?
Sure. Like I said before, you can only contact her within the presence of the obelisk.
Sotek gestured for him to go forward. Masai cleared his thoughts and imagined Anakanti on her throne. Images of her divine kiss flashed in his mind. Her gentle lips, her elegant and sweet voice, her soft touch. Just thinking about it filled Masai with a soothing desert-like warmth. Masai collected his mana, channeled it into his message, and sent it.
Hello, Anakanti? Are you there? It's me, Masai.
The mana he used evaporated, and he stood there waiting. His soul trembled. The moisture in his mouth disappeared. The constant longing for her voice tugged at him. After a while, Sotek nudged him.
Come now, let's go. We're expected at the temple.
A deep sadness covered Masai's face, and Sotek gave him a shake.
Don't feel too bad. I've never gotten a response from her either.
The older cleric moved toward the docks, and Masai followed along. His pace slowed, though. Did he really expect her to appear? In truth, yes, he did. He longed to see her face again, and above all, to be embraced by her once more. A soft, feminine voice echoed in the back of his mind.
I am so proud of you. You will do great things.
A wild coldness spread over him, and Masai stopped. He whirled around and gazed everywhere, hoping to catch a glimpse of his beloved deity. Her voice called again.
I wish I could be there. Know you are in my heart. But the boat driver is watching you closely. He is not to be trusted.
The coldness drifted away, and an eerie isolation fell upon Masai. According to the spells on the obelisk, Anakanti still watched him. Pleasure and longing twisted within him.
Masai, hurry up. I told you we're expected at the temple.
Masai gave one last glimpse to the necropolis, and then rushed over to the boat. The sun had descended closer to the horizon by the time Masai and Sotek reached the temple. A sense of unspoken tension had arisen, as Sotek had remained silent since they had boarded the ferry on the other side of the Va. He had mentioned before that they were expected at the temple, but for what purpose? He had mentioned that there would be only one more lesson to teach. Was that lesson the ability to speak to Anakanti herself? If that was so, then what was next? A strange fluttering emerged within him, but Masai kept the sensation pressed down, deep within himself. His desires and hopes swam through that fluttering, though. To his great satisfaction, Sotek led Masai to the main audience chamber of the temple, rather than another side room. However, upon stepping into the main chamber, the satisfaction became swallowed by fear. The audience chamber was filled with black-robed clerics who sat in robed benches. Toward the front, a trio of people had turned around, and when they noticed Masai, they waved wildly. Eaina, Hikol, and Joti smiled, while the other clerics who turned to regard Masai and Sotek had neutral expressions. Masai's voice came out in a whisper.
What's going on? Why are they here?
Sotek smiled at him.
They're here to bear witness to your right. Follow me and speak only when spoken to.
Sotek turned and walked up to the front of the chamber. Masai shadowed every step. As Masai followed, all eyes fell on him. His brothers let out loud yells of support, but a pair of unknown clerics smacked them in the back of the head. That silenced them, and Masai couldn't help but grin. His glee diminished under the combined weight of everyone's attention. 6 people stood at the front of the chamber, and based on their more sophisticated attire, they must have been the 5 Anakanti bishops and the great Anakanti Cardinal himself. The bishops wore much nicer robes than that of the regular clerics. The glyphs of Anakanti covered the fronts of their chests, and a thick red line crossed in front of their robes. Their staves appeared even more ornate than those of the common cleric, too. The cardinal wore an outfit even more elaborate and ornate than the bishop's. He had a pointed hat on, and both his hat and his robe were red and black. His staff looked omnipotent. A jackal-headed woman with ruby eyes made up the staff's headpiece. The cardinal raised his staff.
Who is this that stands before me? Give me your name, initiate.
I am Masai Iados, your grace.
And I am Cardinal Fish Opot. Do you recognize my authority as absolute, with the exception of the goddess herself?
Masai bowed his head.
Yes, Cardinal Opot.
Do you swear to safeguard the necropolises and defend those who have gone on to
I swear it.
Wild nerves surged within Masai's body.
Do you swear to give fair dealings to the citizens of Ijakos and beyond, and to guide them to the throne of Anakanti?
I swear.
Do you swear not to use your gifts for personal gain?
I swear.
Do you swear to hold the bonds of loyalty towards Anakanti and her order of clerics?
I swear.
Who advocates for Masai Iados?
I do. I've trained him, and he's ready to serve the order as a full cleric.
Cardinal Opot gestured toward the crowd.
Does anyone challenge his right to be instated?
To Masai's relief, no one spoke out against him. A great solemn silence wafted over the crowd, and Masai quivered in the absence of noise. The cardinal raised his staff and pointed it at Masai.
By the authority given to me by Anakanti herself, I authorize you the right of entering the order. Bring forth the staves.
5 individuals approached Masai and each held a staff with a different headpiece. One staff had a jackal head on the end. Beautiful glyphs covered the headpiece of the second staff. The third staff had an ankh at the end. The fourth had a mummified hand, holding an eyeball as its headpiece. The last staff had a skull as its headpiece.
Choose your staff, Cleric Iados.
Masai gazed out and saw the staves that the other clerics held. To his surprise, many of the clerics in the crowd didn't carry the staff that caught his eye. He stepped forward and grabbed the staff with the ankh on the top.
Give him new robes.
Another cleric approached him and handed him a folded stack. Like Sotek's attire, Masai received black silk robes.
Cleric Iados, I welcome you to the order. Join me in welcoming our new brother.
Cardinal Opot slammed the bottom of his staff against the floor. In response, and all united, the bishops and clerics in the audience chambers slammed the bottom of their staffs against the floor 3 times. The sheer volume and intensity rippled through the air. The profound sound overwhelmed Masai's senses. So many emotions bombarded him at once. Pride, belonging, humanity, and even a bit of excitement. If only Anakanti could have seen him.
I decree that you shall be assigned to the Orko district.
Cardinal Opot pointed to one of the female bishops.
You will report to Bishop K. Morna in the morning. Dismissed.
Once more, the cardinal slammed his staff against the ground. The congregation responded with a single stomp before moving to the exit. The bishops and the cardinal turned to leave as well. Only Sotek and Masai's family remained.
You did very well. I'm sure I'll see you around.
Sotek gave him one last sign of approval before he turned to leave.
Wait, Sotek.
Masai walked up to him and hugged him. It was a short-lived embrace, and Sotek grinned as he backstepped away from Masai.
Come by the Jackal Tit when you can. We're colleagues now.
The older cleric turned around and made his way to leave the temple. Masai's siblings approached him, and Eaina spoke first.
The Jackal Tit? Is that some brothel for you Anakanti weirdos?
Her smile went from cheek to cheek.
It's a great restaurant for us weirdos only. How are you all?
Masai began, but Joti interrupted him.
We heard you prepared Father for his journey to the afterlife. Is that true?
Masai nodded.
In 38 days, I'm going to do the second part of it too. He didn't turn gray, so he'll get to travel the land of the dead with his guardians. He'll get to stand before Anakanti.
Hikol slapped him on the shoulder.
Way to go, little brother. It looks like there are some perks to having a family member in the funeral business after all. You're still a piece of goat shit, but you're our piece of goat shit.
A pair of golden ropes had been added to Hikol's uniform, and they wrapped around his shoulders, forming loops for his arms to go through.
You've been promoted.
His older brother's cheekiness faded, and a tiny bit of sadness appeared in Hikol's eyes.
Yeah, although I wish I got the promotion under better circumstances. My squad leader got promoted, so I took his place. Joti is being transferred to the Navy and is going to be a junior officer on a warship. Now we have to get Eaina off to boot camp, and we'll be fine.
Eaina's excitement deflated. Before she said anything, Joti spoke up.
She won't be going to boot camp, man. She is an acolyte.
What? Are you serious? Her too?
Eaina narrowed her eyes at Joti.
How did you know about me? I was so careful.
Are you kidding me? I have spies throughout the city. I needed to make sure you two were safe.
Us two? You and Hikol tormented me. You both reveled in my anguish.
Both of his brothers frowned a little.
We did that to try and toughen you up. We didn't want you to be weak.
Looking back, we should have been more supportive of you. Can you forgive us?
Joti gave Masai a little smirk, and it didn't reflect the mischief-filled grins Joti had given him in their youth. While Masai had grown to dislike his brothers over the years, he couldn't deny one incredible truth.
To be honest, had you two not been so cruel to me, I wouldn't have been recognized as a cleric today. You helped me find...
Should he say love?
You helped me find my destiny. I don't like either of you. But I love and forgive you.
That's good enough for me. Get over here, little brother.
Hikol grabbed Masai and gave him an extremely tight hug. Masai's bones cracked a little, and he let out a little groan.
Hikol, too tight. You're hurting me.
Immediately, Hikol stepped back and stared at Masai with mock surprise.
I'm so sorry, little brother. My love for you overpowered me.
Joti's body began to shake.
By the goddess Dia! My love is overpowering me as well! Oh no!
Before Masai could move away, Joti locked him in a tight embrace as well. It might have been harder than Hikol's, but even hinting at it would only encourage Hikol to hug him again. When Joti finally set Masai free, Eaina went in for a hug too. Rather than torment him, hers was more tender and endearing.
Alright, enough of this touchy-feely crap. Let's go out and celebrate.
Hikol grabbed one of Masai's arms, and Joti grabbed the other.
I think it's about time we saw little Masai get drunk. What do you two think?
To his horror, both Eaina and Hikol raised their hands in unison and cheered out.
You too, Eaina?
Masai tried to sound wounded, and yet he couldn't help but grin. She gently nudged him in the ribs with an elbow.
Yeah, and maybe we'll even find him a woman!
Masai struggled, but they dragged him along nonetheless. If only Anakanti could have been there to celebrate.